logging into Zoom.
Oh, okay. Oh, we didn't take it. Wow, Joe, it's not that bad.
I know.
Nothing bad happened today.
No, this is rainbow.
Yeah.
That's not one of those chairs that goes to the floor.
We're here.
It's a tilt bar, click. All right, next.
You guys are live and I'm broadcast now.
All right. Welcome.
Manager Sharpwater, Director Lolliota.
Hello.
Hey, Tony.
Hi, guys. I'm going to start this meeting in the car, and I'm headed your way. I had to deal with a
All right.
$400,000 truck overheating.
Oh. Sorry, man.
Tony's with us. Hey, we're here. All right, good afternoon. I'd like to kick off the Truckee TDPUD Board Retreat. It is Wednesday, September 16th, 4 p.m. And Shauna, could we have roll call, please?
Thank you. Director Ellis,
Here.
Director Aguirre,
Here.
Director Lolliota.
Here.
President Mendel.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we are going to start our board retreat with them. And then if the public, we will open it up for public comment, but not till the end. So there we go. Ben, you've got the floor.
Excellent. Thank you, President Bender. Oh, we've got the slide deck all the way at the end. Give me a second. Oh, we were here last time.
Yes.
All right. Come on. My apologies. This is the quick preview version.
And now we're speaking.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I got to get there before you guys can capture all the good stuff.
You don't have to go back. I've read it all.
Yeah. Well, all right. So all the decisions are ready.
We're done?
We're good.
We're done.
Yeah, let's have dinner. So first to introduce, thank you everybody for giving us your afternoon. My apologies that we are unable to have this meeting out at the Glenshire substation, which is what I had hoped that we could do. We are here in the cloistered sanctum of the boardroom, which is great, but I was hoping for the majesty of the valley and to help us, to frame us in kind of the strategic thinking, what our horizons are, where the community is, and whatnot. So we want to bring that with us a little bit mentally as we move forward. And so with that apology, though, I want to recognize staff. Shauna and Regina did a fabulous job getting us ready to move out to that site. And then all of a sudden, 3 days ago, when it looked like air quality wasn't going to meet the needs, and clearly we're there, they were able to back us out. So yet again, another testament to the quality of the staff here at the district and their ability to shift on the fly and make great things happen for us. With that, we'll open with the ground rules for the board. Apparently, this is something you guys have done before, so I thought I would turn that over to Pam really quick.
Hello, everybody. It's so good to see you, and we're here. This is it. So I want to take you back for just a moment before we really go through the ground rules and just reflect with staff and with the board about when we first started talking about strategic planning. When was that? Not a date, but when do you remember the first time we said, when we hire this new general manager, the first thing we want to do is a strategic plan? Tony, you might remember.
I remember.
Good. What was it, Tony, about?
What's that?
When did we first talk about strategic planning? At what month, do you think?
It was probably at the first ad hoc committee meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was a long time ago, you guys, almost 10 months. And one of the things, just to remind you that you wanted in our hard skill set, number 4, that was prioritized by the community, was strategic planning and thinking. So when you think about listening to our community, listening to our employees, listening to our executive leadership team, that was a critical component of who we wanted to hire, right? So here we are. It's a great,
Yeah.
great
No pressure.
celebration.
No pressure.
No pressure. 2 months in. So for our 6 workshops that we did last year, just wanted to set the framework of a little excitement for you. It's thanks to you that we're here tonight. It's thanks to this board. You set the vision. We went through an entire process, and because of you, we hired REM, and so now we're starting strategic planning with you, even though we've already started as staff. During those 6 board workshops, I remember the first workshop. I'm sure all of us in this room might remember that night because you've never done one before. And so we talked about what are the roles, how do you interact with each other? Fast forward from that to the last workshop before we did interviews for general managers. And thinking about this last board meeting, you were interactive, you were talking with each other, you were anticipating and pressing back on assumptions. You really were listening, seeking to understand. That is high-level strategic thinking, and I just want to applaud you. It's come a long way, and we don't see that often with elected boards. So just want to remind you, as we look at our ground rules, for everyone in the room tonight, we always show mutual respect. And what you do so perfectly is you active listen. I never hear you interrupting one another. I hear you seeking to understand, commenting on each other's comments. And tonight, I want to add something to strategic thinking. So in order to do strategic planning, we have to go there. You know, I want your mind to fly. I want you to dream. I want you to have hope and give this community hope of things that we might not have ever thought of. This is the time to do that as we go through the strategic planning process. So the third most important skill set that you wanted in hiring someone was innovation. In order to have that happen, I'm just going to call on you guys. So innovate, just go for it, dream. And there are no wild, hairy, bodacious ideas that aren't fantastic.
There is no box.
There is no box. And so when you hear something and from one of your colleagues or from staff and you're not sure really what the intent is, ask them. Tell me more about that. And know that that's not a challenge for you personally, that someone isn't disagreeing with you, they're just seeking to understand. So I call that challenging assumption. So in order for us to have agreement on concepts, we really want to understand one another at a very high level, right? So I might call on Bob and say, Bob, you know, help everyone understand what's behind that comment. You know, what are you thinking? What's important to you about that? And I don't want Bob to take it personally, I want Bob to really explain it, because Krista, then you're gonna have another idea. And then we will start building on these strategic thinking platforms with one another. So, we're gonna practice that tonight. Did you hear that okay, Tony?
Waiting for the tow truck.
Or maybe he's parked and watching it. Yeah. And then, of course, if...
Yes, I heard that.
Oh, great! Thank you! And then, of course, it's collaboration. And all that you each have defined around that word. What does collaboration look like? And that was, you know, the second of the three-legged stool for what you wanted in a general manager was collaboration. And it's what you told me at the first workshop you wanted us to work on. Learning how to collaborate together, to agree to disagree. So those are really 4 things that we will keep bringing up as we do our workshops, and we'll practice having higher level strategic thinking with each other as a board, with you and REM, with you and staff, so that we can really come to conclusions as we begin to implement something that is outrageously great.
High expectations. Outrageously great. So on outrageously great. So I think one of the first things I wanted to do tonight is to kind of set the stage on what strategic planning is in a more framework, I guess. And so I grabbed this definition, and that is strategic planning is a process used by organizations to identify their goals, the strategies necessary to accomplish those goals, and the internal performance management system that will be used to monitor and evaluate progress. I offer that only as a starting point in that it is traditionally limited, and we are not going to operate inside that limit. The limit that we set for ourselves is boundless in that the ideology of no-box thinking means that we can go beyond this rigid framework. Not that we're throwing it away, but recognizing it as an internal component. I would offer to the group that we are about to close out the first century of this organization's operation. It is time for us to prepare it for its next century. It is time for us to lift the organization, to position it in a way that the utility of 2100, and this is kind of a challenge, is what does the utility in 2100 look like? If we think in that space, then we're preparing the PUD now, so that when we cross that threshold at 100 years, the organization is running just as fast and just as hard and better than it was today. We as a group did this. You started it 10 months ago when you started the process to hire not only the CFO, but myself. And I'll say it again, that was a seamless transfer of power, direction, and authority, right? We did a fabulous job. And I think in this time where it seems like everything is changing, and Director Finn, I quote you very often. Last time we met, you said, relentless change. And it connotates very accurately the experience that I'm feeling, that our organization is feeling, that our community is feeling, and I can say domestically, my family is feeling. But in this space, we can start to develop that strength that Pam talked about, the rock, the quiet place where methodical decisions are made, we actualize on those decisions, and we move forward. And that is the strategic plan for us. So it's, what are we going to do now to make sure that those that come after us in the next 100 years look back and say, they were thinking, they were planning, they got us into the right spot so that we could be here now. We want to think about what steps organizationally we can take care of internally, and we'll be talking about some of that tonight, what things we can do for our community. But we want to think about how do we integrate the district. The district has, for a number of years, thought of itself in two ways, electric and water. Inside that thought process, though, is an inefficiency. We don't crosstalk easily. And so one of the things that I'd like to discuss is a one utility concept. We are one utility. We deliver two services, but we are one utility. Our administrative services, they're for everybody. When electric has stuff that water needs, electric can cross the line. Water can do the same. We need to shift that thinking process, I think. And with that comes a modernization of the utility. Because when we start thinking not inside those boxes, not inside those silos, we're thinking broader. We're thinking about what utility means, right? The utility is a tool for the community, right? It is utilitarian in its nature. How does it bring resources to the community? How does it protect those resources? And how does it make sure that those resources continue on in time? They are sustainable. And how do they recover? They are resilient. We want to make sure that it does all those things, not only for the specific community that we are, but the communities that operate within our greater community. So not just humans, right? Our flora and fauna, and the social networks that our utility operates within. It has to be considered in a greater context. We want to think about broadening ourselves, I think, as a resource management entity. So a utility at its core, but we are the resource managers. And the thought process of the past was we develop in our community, the utilities go out, they find resources, they drag resources back for the community. I propose that this is different now. We have to think that the resources are also in our care. They are the beginning of our supply chain, and so must be protected with the same value that we protect the trucks in our yard and the infrastructure that's in the ground. That's a bit of a mind shift for us, but I think we can get there. Beyond that, we want to talk about our culture, and that ties to organizational development and bringing the whole organization together. There are synergies in that alignment that I want to continue to move forward. You've started it. We're in it now, and we can continue forward, as exampled by the modification to the values and some of the other things that we've done. And then welcoming transparency into our work. There is absolutely, and I'll speak emphatically, there is absolutely nothing that this organization does that should not be able to stand up to the scrutiny of the public. Nothing we do should not be able to stand in the light and be able to say, yes, this is a decision we made the best call. Sometimes it will be wrong, but it's the best call we could make, and we're moving forward from that. So with that, tonight, what we're going to accomplish tonight is we're going to review our values. We've done that now a couple times, and we've got staff's ready to bring that forward and talk a little bit about our process. We want to reaffirm our mission statement. This is important for this evening because the mission statement is the core to the beginning of it all, and Pam's going to lead us through that conversation. We're going to understand our painting of the landscape. So this is a term coined for a series of decision levers that we've created through a process that the district went through for the last 2 months. Just a quick aside, everybody. I'll tell you what, we have covered a ton of ground in preparation for you tonight. And I can only say how elegant the material is that you will see tonight, and is such a great jump off point for you. You know, it's grist for the mill. It's strong stuff, really strong stuff. And the ELT and staff did a great job. We truly started in the shops and talking to staff all the way down to the bottom of the line, all the way up through the organization to bring all this information to you tonight. And then lastly, is to take stock of our SWOT, our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats. That'll come at you a little bit differently because we're going to bring threats before we bring opportunities, because humans see threats before they see opportunity. And then we'll talk about the SWOT a little bit. So with that, work completed to date. I've kind of covered that already, but one of the things that you guys did, everybody in this room prior to my arrival, is you worked to define culture. The thing that's interesting about that, in reviewing it, or reviewing the thought process, I went back to the hard and soft skill sets that were used to select both the CFO and myself. I would offer to this group that those ideas, those soft and hard skills, those are some of our core cultural beliefs, you know, from decision-making and integrity, humor, all of those things that you were talking about, those are the identifiers of the culture that we want here inside of our organization. Because of those, it enhances our ability to communicate. We establish the ground rules inside the culture. We've adopted our values. The fantastic thing is we've done it twice, right? What that says is we're a dynamic organization willing to look back at our decisions, modify them, and carry forward again. I think that's fantastic. And that came from staff. They identified the weakness, and we brought it all the way to the board. The board moved forward with the resolution. We've completed our SWOT. This was a pretty interesting event, you guys, right? Because there's the cultural part about, can we talk, can we not talk, who can play, who can't play? We have moved staff and our leadership team all the way through that process. And in the end, we were getting, I think, a tremendous amount of quality feedback from all levels of the organization, which is fantastic. And then paint the landscape. Some of the things I talked about earlier, those have been solidified into these 8 levers, things that you will see shortly. They are extraordinary, and I think something I'm very proud of the ELT and with Pam's help have been crafted in a very great, in a really, again, I'll use the term elegant way, and definitely a piece for you guys to be able to carry forward and for us to be able to bring a serious strategic plan to life. With that, okay.
I warned Rem. So you guys, something that Rem said that just made kind of chills go up my spine is resources in our care. And think about what that means, because people are our resources. And we've talked about how important our people are, internally and externally. So I'd like to just offer up for just a few minutes with staff and board, what did you hear that Rem said that kind of gave you those goosebumps?
Direct feedback. All right.
Yeah. But it's a good thing to start as just talking. President Bender.
I gotta just re-quote Chris there. I like all those relentless change, you know, I like that. You know, the 100-year plan, I was just thinking in decades here, not even that much farther. So that was kind of that was going beyond what my current expectations were. And
no, that's wonderful. Staff, did any of the rest of you like that relentless change, or what are some of your observations? Sure. Just start popping up here. Otherwise, I'm going to call on you.
I really appreciated General Manager Scherzinger's
Rem is fine.
his introduction of the traditional definition of strategic planning and how we're going above and beyond that. I think this is just a wonderful way. Thank you.
Cool. Anybody else? Observations?
Yeah, set in the context, Director Bender and Director Finn, set in the context of the PUD in 2100. Rem presented that to us, and that emoji with the brain exploding was like, wow, how do you conceive something or perceive something 100 years from now? So that sets the tone for the thinking moving forward. Is no box, lateral thinking, forward thinking. So it's great.
I also thought, when you bring in relentless change, my thought is sometimes change isn't necessary, or sometimes it's better not to change some things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with change as long as it's for a positive and beneficial move. But also, when Rem was talking, it just got me thinking about all of our, things that we have to start looking at in the future, and also some of the, the threats that we have. I mean, the last 6 months shows you the power of what one person can do to a whole state. And not necessarily in a positive way, you know, depending upon how you look at it. Because I know people that their businesses have been destroyed, you know, like a hairdresser and things like that. Yeah, I personally know. And it just, and as far as threats,
and ideas and what's going on in your head, that's what we want, because this strategic plan, you guys, it's yours. And where you go, it is, and what you decide to do is yours. And so the more we talk in between, the more you understand where each other's coming from and what you're thinking. So great comment. Anybody else?
Something that resonated with me, when you said, in the state of policy, we have changed this is kind of quiet. We are making a plan, as we're thinking ahead, because that is a confidence inducing feeling. And again, the utility is a tool for us. So what do communities need to find? What are things that never change? Certainly, obviously, you know, water, electricity, this is what we've always said, and going forward, we talked about data, and now talking about being caretakers of our resources on all those levels, you know, our human resources, people here, how do we help our people? How do we help our people in this? We're moving in this, work with us here at TV and in our broader community and our other natural resources, because our people depend on those natural resources. Most of us are here because we love the greater world that's outside of our personal relationships or our business relationships or anything of it. You know, our forests, our water, our size, I mean, these are fundamental, and we have to take care of them. You know, I feel like the utility industry is going to sort of flip over. You know, we're responsible for a lot of the degradation that happens in our natural world. It is power, you know, not that it was intentional, but where we are today with greenhouse gases and climate change, a lot of that rests on our shoulders as utility professionals and power providers. And it's time for us to start taking care of it again, taking it back a little bit, making our world like we did 100 years ago. We might make it a little better place by bringing life, right? By transforming how we travel, how we did business, how we, you know, electricity was obviously the industrial revolution. It changed humanity in so many ways for the better. And now we need to continue on that path. We need to look ahead and transform the world again and continue to keep all of these tremendous advances that we have made, but in a sustainable way that is healthy.
Welcome, Tony.
Yay, Tony.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for your comments. Say a few things. I just want to, this is more of an observation, than anything else, but, it was kind of alluded to earlier, you know, the process went through 10 months ago, things were going on, and what I'm really proud of, this whole group, ELT, Ren, and Pam, is that we're not just walking, we're not just talking, we're walking the walk. We said we were going to do this. We're here. We're diving in head first. And I'm just really proud of the group that you know, they're coming together and we're building this process in place. You know, very few barriers to getting that done. It could have been very easy for them to step in and go, you know, I need to get my bearings here and you know, figure out what's going on, this and that, but you know what, we're here, and that's a pretty amazing, you know, way to just jump on the treadmill and just like take off. So I want to thank Ram and thank Pam for your help. You know, we definitely, Ram's going to do a great job. I appreciate Pam keeping the ship, the perspective of the ship to make sure.
Hey, we're partners.
Yeah. Oh, he's steering.
He's definitely.
You're up on the inspection deck. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for taking the time, and I'm sure there's a lot of things we're going to go tonight that took a lot of time and effort on the staff's part. So thank you. I'm excited to continue to push this forward.
Thanks, Joy.
That's so cool. Anybody else?
You know, I would just add, you know, I appreciate what people said. You know, it starts with mission, and I think from everybody in this room, that comes with a sense of public service, you know, stewards of resources, and how wonderful to have the opportunity to get better at that, even though we're pretty darn good already, and then, you know, have this shared purpose that can help rudder us through these kind of rudderless times. So I think the timing of what we're doing is perfect for this organization and for the community.
Yeah,
Safe harbor.
just like Krista said, safe harbor.
Yeah.
Joe, something
Uh-oh.
that's picking, did you get hooked up?
That's all. When I sat down here, I said, okay, this is a plan for the future. And then when Rev said we're going for 100 years, another couple of questions came into my mind, like, life is always changing, like, the part of life that we're in now, I mean, it's been a major change for everyone. And, okay, now we set up, we're gonna plan, and our plan is to make everything better. I feel that we have pretty well PVC, if we can build on that, and try to keep it going as long as, and in fact, I made that kind of a promise at the forum the other night, that, we have a smooth running, streamlined PUD, and where I was going with was that I was only one member of the board, but I did have a part of that. And I voted on a lot of things, and I think that I voted in the right direction, because here we are, and I think we're in good shape. We're running smoothly, the lights are on, the water's running, and we're solvent.
Exactly.
I mean, everything's running good, and we can improve on that better, but I look down like 5, 10, or 20 years, things are going to change, and that's going to change our plan too a little bit. So we're going to have to be naturally flexible to what the times are at that time. We were asked are you gonna get everybody together? And I told them that we had a person that's in the business.
We
I
do.
even mentioned your name, I think. And, she's gonna we're trying to get the whole community of ratepayers together in on our committees and in our planning and so on.
Mhm.
And so I'm going, right now, I have a big question, but still, we're gonna do good, and we're gonna plan for the betterment. And then, if we have to change, then we'll have to change that time, whatever it is.
I agree, Joe.
But at least we're making an effort, and we're helping the taxpayers, and I think the staff has done a fantastic job in the last 5, 6 years, 10 years.
I agree.
On this drive.
So I think, Joe, to your point, you know, there's the phrase or the saying, you know, plan to work the plan. A lot of organizations, they create a plan, it becomes a static thing and it lives on a shelf. I think it's, just from my experience so far here at the organization, or at the PUD, we don't see it that way, right? We're working that thing, and then we're going to stretch it, we're going to push it. And the only reason we can be there, Joe, is because you are absolutely correct. I use the terms smooth running and streamline. This is to Tony's point as well. The only way that I can come in, that I can come on board with that speed, bringing you here now, is because we are that organization, because the ELT was prepared, because the board was prepared. We were all ready. I was watching you on the outside and knew that I had to be going as fast or faster so that I could jump on board to train and get out of town. But it is to the credit of this organization that we are here now, ready to develop a plan for the future that is resilient and can take the hits and the changes necessary and maintain the safe harbor concept. Absolutely. It is well said, sir.
I think also something, you know, that may not be stressed enough is, I think the board and staff, I feel we all work as a team. There's no I in team, and I don't think any of us look at it that way. But I feel like, me personally, professionally, that it's a very well-oiled machine, and, this team works great.
I love coming to work.
And you know, to Bob's point and staff, everybody, it's so rare that elected officials get to have evenings like this, right? I think, Tony, you said that in one of our ad hoc meetings, you know, and to be able to talk with your new general manager and staff and share ideas. And tonight, I'm just going to keep emphasizing, you know, as you listen to staff next, this is about dream sharing. This is about your legacy as a board the next 6 months. You're crafting that. And I have to tell you something funny. When Ram said 2,100, I kind of looked at Joe. I was thinking, how old will I be? Oh my God, I'll be here for sure in 100 years. It just blew my mind. You know, but for our grandchildren who are here, or their children, it's a great legacy.
All right, so with that, we'll get to the values. So, Shauna?
Joe?
I'll start off.
All right.
I think in 100 years, we may have wireless electricity and water delivered without pipe. So that's my dream.
That'll be freeze-dried water.
Freeze-dried
water?
Ooh, no pipe?
And you'll still be on the board.
That's what we call continuity.
That's good.
Hey, Tony, I'm kind of glad you said that. I might only be here another couple of months. But I'm getting into this planning here.
I have hope, Joe.
So I hope that,
I have a 100-year plan for you.
pardon?
Because you're in my 100-year plan.
Oh, good, okay, then I'll see what I can do.
You may not like it.
So values, we're going to speak to values for a moment. So what are values? Well, values are the foundational or fundamental beliefs on which behavior is based. They are the guiding principles that we use to manage everything we do, including our relationships with one another and customers. And values are what we stand for every day, even when no one is looking. And every company has a culture, we do too, and values form the heart of that culture. Values are that foundational to that culture. So why values? Well, values are foundational to the district, and I like the stones up here on our slide. The stone metaphor is very appropriate, isn't it? Our strategic plan may change over time, but we have a solid foundation capable of handling whatever we want to build on that. So why values? Well, they're choices. What makes us different from others is the choices that we make every day in accomplishing the district's mission. Values require action. Beliefs without actions are just empty words. Values are timeless. Our practices and strategies may change over time, but our values stay constant. Values are costly, like any other choice. They come with a cost. We need to be ready to uphold our values, even when it would be easier or less expensive to not do that. And finally, values are purposeful. Our values align with the district's mission statement. Values help translate that mission statement into actions that we perform every day. Another way to think about values is they're the bridge that connects our actions to the district's mission. And of course, the district's mission, we know it by heart, don't we? It's to provide that reliable, high-quality services while meeting customer demand and to manage district resources in a safe, open, and environmentally responsible manner at low cost. So what are the district's values? Well, version 1 is up on the wall over there. We can't quite see it behind the poster board, but version 1 had 5. We had accountability, own it, integrity, be honest and ethical, timeliness, be responsive to goals and commitments, safety is the way of life, and finally, work-life balance, work hard, play hard. Those were version 1. How did we choose our values? Well, the executive leadership team and the previous GM started the process to establish district values almost 2 years ago, back in January of 2019. Over a series of meetings in which we were open, honest, and very transparent. We thoroughly discussed. We rumbled with one another with purpose to arrive at that version 1, those first set of 5 core values. This work happened over January, February, and March. We had a district-wide rollout of those values in April of 2019. We brought it to the board in a workshop format in May of 2019, and the board formally adopted version 1 way back in June of 2019, well over a year ago. These values are rooted in the district's past and present, and they represent the character qualities of all our employees. And these values will continue to lead us into the future as we accomplish the district's mission. And of course, that's only version 1, and we have version 2 to talk about in a moment. So what's next with our values? Well, I started off by saying that these are foundational to our culture and mission. And so to extend the metaphor, to extend the foundation metaphor, the metaphor of stones, we have expanded that foundation to be even bigger, better, and stronger. And Shauna will explain what's next. Take it over the top, Shauna.
Thank you. Jill gave us a great outline of what values are. They're our moral content. They're the heart of our culture. Values provide a foundation for moving into strategy and persevering through adversity. Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Values speak to us about this. We discussed at our September 2nd meeting that Ren and Pam and Ren talked about this earlier. They went throughout the district. They spoke with staff on every level. They talked about future concepts and what that looked like. A theme out of those wanted communication as part of that. As part of communication, we listened, we heard, and we changed. We molded within our employees. We conducted a survey, over 95% participation. The only 2 that didn't participate were on vacation. So that is a beautiful survey. The survey validated a strong sentiment for the core values, with changing safety to number 1 and adding communication. So it provided the validity of what we had already put as our foundational values. The values guide every process for the district, from leading, coaching, creating public processes, hiring processes as we talked about, performance appraisals, and conducting day-to-day businesses. The values, as the board adopted again September 2nd, are safety. Safety is our way of life. Communication, send and receive. It's really important to hear as well as send information. Integrity, honestly ethical. Accountability, own it. Timeliness, meet our goals and commitments, work-life balance, work hard, play hard. So these are our foundation, our fundamental pieces. Bruce Braun is with the Harvard Business School, and he gave a really interesting quote on how values and culture go together. Organizational culture defines a joint shared description of an organization from within the organization. Culture is a process of sense-making. Sense-making has been defined as a collaborative process of creating shared awareness and understanding out of different individuals' perspectives and varied interests. This quote really spoke to me about local government, the public process, and what we're going through. Tony really put it well when he said we're walking the walk. Values are living, they're not words on the wall. An organization that we spent a lot of heartfelt time and energy creating values and working on culture. And now we're embarking on our next adventure, a strategic plan. A key deliverable is how we behave and make sense out of what we're doing. In public service, it is monumentally important how we interact, respond, collaborate, and together with our communities and employees make a difference. A quote from Pam Hobday that I used in my staff report: "The culture is strategy for lunch." This statement is all about marrying our mission, as Joe had pointed out, which is our purpose, with culture, our behavior, our norms, and our values, to strategy, our goals and vision. Public service is more than a job or a legal requirement. It's about the greater good, societal evolution, supporting and protecting vital public resources, and ensuring those resources are equal and available to people. Through much leadership training, a quote from Brene Brown resonated with me from Derek Lee. Daring leaders live into their values. Joe?
The other one was, we don't have to be perfect, just engaged and committed to aligning our values with our actions. Those were excellent.
Thank you. Any comments? Observation?
I like the last quote.
Why? Don't let perfection be the enemy of the good.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah. And you, as a board, spent a lot of time talking about values. And Tony, I was looking back on some notes, and I really appreciated you sharing so much about what your business, what your organization has done with values, and remembering, wasn't it a culture club that you had that you share that with everybody again, just to refresh memory?
Sure, yeah, no, we, TDPUD, established core values, in a few years now, and I'm sure it's really unique, but one of the things we do with that, those core values is they are the first 5 areas that each employee is valued in performance evaluation. And so it's front and center for everybody. Take seriously and to evaluate, reevaluate the process of Yeah, so one of the things that City established is a culture club, which is, you know, a diverse cross-section of employees that volunteer to meet monthly, quarterly, I can't remember, to discuss our core values, discuss the relevance of them, and discuss how to keep them fresh, relevant, you know, keep, find ways to promote them within the organization that keep people engaged and want people to see it, want more of it, and understand it, and be able to touch it, feel it. It's like, for instance, one of the things that they've been doing with COVID going on is they put a whiteboard in the back of the room, and in the lunchroom, and every 2 or 3 weeks they just ask a question about the organization, about, you know, one of the questions was, you know, despite everything going on with COVID, what's been something good that's come out of it? Yeah, just eliciting conversation from people, and it's been really cool. And the last question was, what do you enjoy about working at CUD? And there's always, there's a diverse, you know, mix of answers, but it's really interesting to see. And, you know, I've never seen, it's funny, my office isn't too far away from that, and I've never seen anyone writing actually there. But, I don't know when they're actually doing it. So it's just things like that. And before, you know, before COVID, you know, it was the culture team was the groups that, you know, putting together employees awards, the awards dinner, things like that. Just a group that's taking ownership of trying to, you know, organization focused on the people and how the values of the organization fit into it. It's been a cool experience to watch it and watch those people take ownership of it.
Thank you, that's so inspiring. And those values, and talking about them, and then marrying it, you know, culture, values equals culture, culture equals values. And so when you think about how to make those, you know, really things in the future as we change, and as Rem talked about resources in our care, it's how to involve everybody, right? Yeah, that's really neat. Any other observations, comments?
All right, on to the SWOT. Challenge.
So Mike and I are going to talk a little about the SWOT up on the display. If you haven't seen a SWOT analysis, this really is a simple, useful framework that really helps an organization analyze your strengths, your weaknesses, your threats, and your opportunities. And it's really a process, and Rem has spoken to this, where the management team and the employees have worked pretty hard and gotten multiple meetings, and really identifying both the internal and external factors that can both be favorable or unfavorable in doing strategy planning. What SWOT really helps us do is build upon what we do well. That's a great starting point and a foundation of where we can expand upon. It also addresses what we're lacking, where we can make improvements within our company. It helps minimize our risks because it identifies the threats and really takes the greatest possible advantage and chances for success in building out this strategy.
So on the strengths and weaknesses, that's the looking at the internal side of the company, and you're generally on the strength side. You're kind of, it allows you to strategically think about the positive attributes of your company, what differentiates you from the other businesses in your space. Every company except for the FANGs. You guys are familiar with FANG stocks, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google, the FANG stocks. So other than the FANG stocks, every company has limited resources, right? And so strengths and weaknesses and identifying those helps you dial in where your strengths, where your resources are deployed. And it allows you to address, focus on where the highest level of potential is to optimize the performance of the district, which ultimately benefits the community. So one of our strengths is being here almost a century now. And our water quality is the top, if not the top in the country, right? So on the weaknesses side, no company is perfect. If they tell you they are, they're missing something. So we're always continually learning and improving. So on the strength side, identifying your internal areas that you know need continuous improvement and areas of focus, either near term or some things may take a little bit longer time to generate improvement, but continuous improvement. So identifying areas of weakness within the company.
I just want to add one thing before Ian, just because you guys are doing such a great job. But from a theory perspective, I want you as the board to really think about this. As we identify and talk about tonight's strategic levers, painting the landscape, big picture, it takes the place of visioning, of a vision statement. When you dream about things, initiatives you'd like to see the district take on with REM and staff, I want you to know that every single thing we do will run through this lens. And every single idea you have will have all four of these. And so the thinking is, when you come up with your ideas, they're going to be threats that we're going to turn into opportunities. Okay, that's the goal. Sometimes there's uncontrollable things here, but we want to think of this, and these are external, as both Ian and Mike said. Then what we want to say about your ideas, what are our internal strengths and weaknesses to pull this off? Okay, so it's a way to mitigate upfront, and we add finances to that too. Do we have the money? Where is it? How long? So I just wanted you to know how important this model is as Ian continues. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.
I think that's important to think that this is a lens to every decision, every thought, every vision, every strategy goes through SWOT analysis. And this is one of many tools that we're doing, but this is definitely a major one that we're putting through. So the threats, we sort of turn to the external factors that can either help or hinder a strategy. Threats is a major one, where it's an external factor both now, but also in the future. And we have to sort of have a little bit of an oracleness to us to see what threats can potentially harm us in the future. An example, it could be the change of energy that we just don't know. Technology doesn't exist. How does that play into our strategy in going to 100% renewable? So it's out of our organization's control for the most part because it's external, but there are things that we can do to potentially place contingency plans or ways to get around those threats so they don't hinder our strategy going forward. And then, of course, opportunity. And this is really the hope of the SWOT analysis, that even though we have strengths and weaknesses and threats, there's always opportunities to get around them or move forward, even though they may get in our way. A weakness is opportunities to change that into a strength. A threat is opportunities really are, again, favorable external factors that are likely to contribute to our organization's success. And they need to be fostered by this business or any business so they can be part of a solution and success. These opportunities are always forward-looking, they are long-term, but they're also within the utility business space that we're dealing with when we talk about this. And the examples up there, we talked about the 9th read, but on the threat side, regulation and laws, both state and federal, are threats to our district and threats to our strategy. The opportunity, you heard about in the values, that we are building a culture. This is an opportunity we have to make a huge strength in our district moving forward. And then just examples of what the staff and the executive team, with the help of them and Pam, have come up with to help then move forward into our strategy thinking and how we can move forward with success. So really, what SWOT does, it sets the table of where we are and where we want to go. And it makes it possible to appreciate the state of our organization and determine the most effective direction for growth, development, and success.
Thank you. Thoughts, questions as we move forward? All right, well, we'll turn it over to the next slide. Gentlemen?
Painting the landscape. We're going to hear a lot about that this evening. And
Is it watercolor or acrylic?
no box.
No
No
box.
box.
Can we get a brush?
I appreciate it.
Finger painting,
Finger
lunch
paintings are
painting.
way better. It's more tactile.
Any media works, any media.
Yeah, yeah, we're mixed media.
Yeah.
So we're going to hear this term a lot this evening, and I'm going to start with just kind of giving you a little overview of the process. Mr. Poncellet, Stephen will follow up with a little bit more detail on it. So you heard earlier on at the onset of the workshop terms like outside of the box, thinking in the future. Director Finner, we talked about lateral thinking early on in this process. During the ad hoc committee, we talked a lot about being innovative and visionary. So we as an ELT, REM, PAM, we all went to each operational department and presented that to staff to think in terms of what would the landscape look like for each of you to be the best you here at the district, be the best contributor to our overall mission, be successful. What opportunities are out there that you can think of? And painting a landscape was just that. Do not think of any constraints, really rainbows and butterflies and sunshine, outside the box. What can you contribute to this process, and what can we provide back to you? And so that process started at the staff level, and then we brought it to the ELT team to, again, refine it and add some more components to it and start to really distill these down into manageable pieces. And then the next step is what we're doing here this evening, is bringing it to the board and in the future the community to paint the landscape for the district. It doesn't have to be in increments of 100 years. It can be 10 years, 5 years, 50 years, but painting that and see where we need to go. So find that direction we're going and head into the district. Stephen?
All right, thank you, Brian. It was really an exciting and, very interesting process to start with this bottoms-up staff thing and kind of try to refine to, what we, landed on. And in my case, being a Department of 1 or Department of 72, depending on how you want to look at it, I was able to bring in a cross-functional team of people who don't report to me to do the landscape for my function. But we did it for all the functions, and then we got together at the ELT level to roll it up. But Brian didn't say, we then had a group that was, and I had the privilege to participate in, that was Brand, Pam, Brian, and myself. And we locked ourselves in a room and really went at it. And, we really worked at the kind of distillation and refining of it so we could get something that we thought was compelling, real, actionable, and that we could work on. And so that was really, in that that we had. And having kind of gone through the conservation and, you know, the incredible work we did there, I started thinking about this concept of, you know, there's this traditional way of thinking, and then there's this kind of innovative way of thinking, and then there's even the next level, that visionary level. And those weren't the first three words I started with, but in a really interesting dynamic, we kind of refined it to that. And you could also use it as box, out of the box, no box, if you wanted, but that concept really stuck. And while I was applying it to traditional conservation program design, as we started thinking about it, it's really ubiquitous to everything that we do. And those three frames of traditional, innovative, and visionary can be applied to every strategy, every goal, everything we think about going forward. And so Brian did an exceptional job of the images up there, and Joe gets credit for the last image was the ripple image. Because when we started trying to think beyond traditional, beyond innovative to, you know, visionary, Joe had this beautiful image of the ripple. And we are a ripple. Everything we do ripples out to the district, to our community, to the state, federal, global, right? And there's other ripples out there. And some of them are complementary and they're going with us, and some of them are coming right at us, you know, like the Titanic. And, you know, having that vision to understand that, to contemplate what it is. My son's a surfer, like growing up here, and he can tell you when a wave's coming, you can be unprepared and get creamed. That's my experience in surfing. You can duck under it, but you're still there if you haven't gone anywhere, or you can ride it and harness that energy going forward. So, you know, in that dream and vision, you know, the waves are all around us. How can we ride?
So as we move forward this evening, kind of think in terms of this and paint a landscape. The traditional, you know, the things like Director Ellis and Director Aguirre have mentioned about, you know, the stability that traditionally what we've succeeded so well in, and reliability in that perspective. Innovative. What do we need to do now to get us to our future goals? And then visionary, no box. Where do we want to be at X amount of years or in the future? So use those terms and kind of frame your thinking for the rest of the evening.
Cool, huh, you guys? So,
Does anybody need to take a break?
yeah,
Anyone?
we're gonna have one more exercise and then dinner.
Okay.
If
No one told me we had to exercise.
Be careful.
Can we do it virtually?
We need to be on a deal soon.
Steve's giggling and doing some jumping jacks in the Zoom meeting.
We set?
Go.
Okay. So again, you guys, as we all think together about painting a landscape, I just want to come back to reframe. Traditional strategic planning, traditional organizations used to have a vision statement. Those, for most organizations, are gone, and they're replaced with mission statements. We used to have vision, mission, and then try to get the nomenclature and clarify what the difference was, and it never worked. So they went by the wayside about anywhere from 3 to 5 years ago. What's important about painting the landscape, that is your vision. As a board, that is your vision. So the mission statement, which we have had, I wanted to ask everybody, because I don't know this answer. How old is this mission statement? When did we do our own mission statement?
8 to 10 years ago, we revised it slightly, maybe sometime within 12 years.
Okay,
We've updated it.
all right. But probably 12 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember inserting environmentally sound, you know,
Okay,
that stuff. And
thank you. That's really helpful. So think about what's happened in your lives in the last 12 years.
Yeah, the big gist is that 90% of this is city-based for a long time.
Okay. So let's think about what a mission statement is. I want to start with just how I visualize it. A mission statement that isn't written here is really the lifeblood of the organization. It's what
Isn't it purpose and goals?
that comes next. Yes. Definitely.
Right to the bottom line, Bob.
Right to the bottom line is good. Thank you. But it's what pumps through your veins that you love about this place. That's mission. What do we stand for? So it's really the district's purpose, not only for those in the organization, but also the public. It explains in simple and precise words your purpose of being, and it explains and answers the question, why does the district exist? So if we look at our mission statement now, which is about 12 years old, is that what you said, President Drucker?
Plus, right?
Yeah.
90% is probably 30.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm just, no, yeah, it was environmental.
But let's,
Not quite that far back.
not quite that far back?
That's why 30, no, 30.
No, 30.
We're supposed to 10 to 12.
Okay.
Ron Hemming was on the board then.
Yeah.
Okay, but the point is you did a really good job if you think about the definition. And so let's read it. The mission of the Truckee Donner PUD is to provide reliable, high-quality water and electrical power services while meeting customer demands and to manage district resources in a safe, open, responsible, environmentally sound manner at the lowest practical cost. Right?
Very specific.
Very specific, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So tonight, whoops, is everything okay? Tonight, what we'd like to do is offer up some slight changes. Not many, but just some. A little refresh for your consideration and input. Remember, that's part of what's really core to what you do. So, the mission of Truckee Donner Public Utility District is to provide reliable, high-quality utility services. Remember, REM talked about one district, not the separation of water and power. While meeting customer demands, managing district resources in a safe, open, responsible, and environmentally sound manner at lowest practical cost. So let's go to the next slide to make it really easy, because we have both for you. So the differences in the two, let's look at both of these as I walk you through for then our discussion. The mission of the Truckee Donner Public Utility District is to provide reliable, high quality, here's the change, instead of water and electrical power services, utility services. Okay? While meeting customer demand, all the same. And then just a slight nuance, okay? Instead of and to manage, managing district resources. More future focused. So sit with that just for a minute, and what I want us to do is talk about it and see what you think.
I have some,
Yeah,
well, just to answer your initial thought, I wrote down, we exist for and serve
okay.
community.
Hold on.
And then the word provide just seems a little, and then now I'm reading, managing the district's resources, right? We're not only providing, we then are trying to protect. Where do those resources come from? Are they renewable? How do we make sure that the water stays clean for the next so many hundreds of years? Yeah, forever. Exactly. what is I don't know the age of the water, it's anywhere from 500 to 1,000 years, depending on where it is in the aquifer or whatever. But eventually, it's pumped out, protecting the watershed, making sure it happens. If you keep it clean, and then the same with the electrical side.
Cool.
I would argue that there's a bit of a redundancy in the statement.
Okay.
When we say provide reliable, high-quality utility services while meeting customer demand, I think reliability and customer demand are somewhat redundant on each other. One thing that has always been in the back of my mind, and it's in the forefront of my career at Top City, is customer service. And the fact that we don't have an emphasis on customer service in the mission statement. There is some customer service, I think, in the values. Or integrity or accountability, I can't remember. But anyway, it's just a thought that this might be an opportunity to steal some bandwidth in this statement with the idea of customer service, since we're already really talking about reliability is meeting customer demand.
It's like that portion, Tony, between provide and demand there, those two little, that one line plus could be combined in the sign and really emphasizing who we're here to serve. And that's customer service.
So looking at this new, would you just change it to customer service?
I think it would probably need to wordsmith it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
Might I suggest serving customer needs?
we work.
To provide reliable, high-quality utility service. Period. So high-quality utility services, customer service would be one of those components. Or do we want to call it out?
I think, in my opinion, calling out customer service is there, front and center, and it matters.
Agreed.
Good.
While providing high-quality customer service, while providing excellent customer service, while
Why
focusing on
don't you use the word excel?
excelling, while excelling at customer service.
Wow.
While
Selling that.
Exceeding customer needs?
Exceeding, selling, exceeding. Customer service?
Or, I don't know, just a random thought, not that it's right or anything,
Right.
just high quality is already there, and utility is there. Utility and customer service, high quality, utility, customer service, and customer services.
Okay, we say that again, high quality.
Well,
utility
it's just
and
really,
customer service.
Yeah.
and customer services in high quality utility and customer services. I don't know, now it may not sound.
Utility and customer services. This is great, we're brainstorming together. High quality utility and customer services.
And Tony, you're thinking, anyone speak up, Xing out the reliable part, because it's also part of.
No, I didn't.
I would like to keep it.
Yeah, I would, but I call it keeping reliable in, because that was what was supporting the customer demand.
So drop in the customer demand part.
Drop in the customer demand
Yeah.
part, and
Right.
integrating utility and customer service.
Great.
Okay, so right
Versus,
now,
well, I like what Steve said about needs versus demand.
Yeah, customer service, customer needs, those are both relevant statements, kind of the direction I was hoping to achieve.
Okay, good. What I'm hearing is that there's a consensus to keep reliable, right? Want to keep reliable. So the district's level was to provide reliable, high-quality utility and customer service
While managing district
needs.
resources.
Do we want to add, I heard you say needs?
Yeah, maybe, we're supposed to be responsive, do you wanna, we have responsible in there.
We have responsible. Do we need to have customer service needs or just high-quality
Utility and customer service.
utility and customer services?
Maybe we should, rather than call meeting customer demands, say, excelling.
We've already asked that.
Yeah, we just kind of got rid of this
Okay.
and put,
So if we just stick managing up behind while, then it moves. So then it is, the mission of Truckee Donner Public Utility District is to provide reliable, high-quality utility and customer services while managing district resources in a safe, open, responsible, and environmentally sound manner at the lowest practical cost.
So, I have one observation
yes,
about, under utility. I would designate in parentheses even water and power. Because we have two districts, Lake, that are utilities, but they have different services.
And also, we don't have sewer.
Right, sewer, gas, telephone, I mean.
I'm not saying I want it, but I mean.
Well, I was gonna say just almost a bit opposite, that I quite like not defining such specificity, because it allows us to grow into whatever our customer base might be in the future. And
I keep saying in writing communication, it's like in the forefront of our lives right now, and how can we help that and staying generic with utilities?
because I can see us, moving into that. It is a higher customer need in the community, and more specificity, just water and just electricity, then, you lose some ability to be innovative and responsive to stuff that may come up that we.
Customer needs.
Customers,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely customers. I mean, if we don't explanation.
Well, I was just kind of thinking back to a person first reading this. Said, oh, God, we got a utility company that does everything. So I would designate it back down to water and power somehow.
But this is just a mission statement, there's other.
Well, yeah, but.
yeah.
That would
It's
tell
our mission
what we're
statement.
doing.
Tony?
I see both sides of the spectrum. I tend to lean towards where Chris is at and the idea that, that we are a utility, and we, we perform water and sewer, or water and power. Lines are off here. Specifically, that there could be future needs, it would just keep adding to the mystery of all public utility districts within the basin. Why not continue to propagate that issue?
Just an observation as you're talking, because they're all great points. As Ram and I went and met with different employee groups, one of the questions, as Ram was talking about, we're really one utility. I was inspired by employees when I asked them the question, in 30 years, what business might we be in? And they came up with all sorts of really cool answers. Because most of them will still be alive, and their kids will be. And so they really, I felt really liked that one utility. We are the utility, not separating it out. I found that interesting. I just wanted to share that with you.
I think it's a good observation, and I think it's important to keep in mind that nothing happens without the decision of these 5 people, and leaving some flexibility
I don't know grammatically, so that's there. But that, both,
Utility and customer service, or utility and customer services?
study numbers, not grammar.
As another number guy, I think the S is okay because it gives us plurality, right? It means that there are a number of services that we can deliver. I would offer up one adjustment, and that is the district is currently providing a broadband service, albeit small, infant size, but we are delivering broadband at this right now. So I think that by using utility, we encompass that. And it gives the board flexibility if the community has needs.
I got a question. Have we done a survey of our community in the last few years to see what they want this district to become?
I'm so happy you mentioned that. November, we
Yeah.
do,
You
as
just
part
put
of
the
this
softball on the
process.
tee.
This is
You
so
just put the
good.
softball on the tee.
Right here, Bob, you read my script.
So one of the things we're going to do, Bob, is we will conduct a series of surveys to measure appetite for service and kind of where they want us to be, and that will be brought back to the board as part of our community outreach. So there'll be working groups, there'll be the survey, all of that information is going to flow back to you as we start to set our goals and our initiatives and objectives.
And
Whatever.
as a follow-up to that, then
Yeah.
how much do they want to pay for
That's
that
the golden
service? What's
question.
their, you know,
And-
what's their level of acceptance?
Mhm.
So what we're gonna talk about next month at our workshop and bring back to you, as Graham just talked about, our community focus, we're gonna have a plan, because after the surveys, we're gonna have great information. And then we're gonna have focus groups. So we're gonna be able to ask them that. And really give you data that you haven't had to munch on and do a gap analysis between what we learned in the surveys, what the community's telling us with focus groups.
I mean, I'd kind of like to know if, you know, our community really wants us to be involved with, you know, workforce housing. Do they want us to be involved with broadband? Do they want us to be involved with, you know, making more, you know, trails or paved trails or something like that? You know, or should that be, you know, the area of the town of Truckee?
Absolutely. I think as we're moving forward, Bob, there's one of the things that I want us to be able to work on as we move through this process is, well, you'll see in a few minutes, but really operating from a business mindset. Is there a need? Can we fund that need? Right? Because people are going to say, if you tell them, hey, you can have a whole chocolate cake, they're going to say, yeah, I want the whole chocolate cake. But if you say, hey, you got to pay for the chocolate cake, all of a sudden, yeah, maybe I just want a slice, right? So we have to accurately measure that business appetite and make sure that the utility moves into those spaces with caution and care. For sure, we don't want to go out and promise, yeah, we're going to do this, and then not be able to deliver, right? So I think that's key to the decision-making rubric that we're going to go through as we move forward. And you'll see in a few minutes, as we move into the paint the landscape, some of the levers, well, one of the levers specifically speaks to operating with this kind of business mindset with added value to the community. So the ELT and I, we were working in this space to talk about, and I'm already jumping ahead, I apologize,
It's hard not to. It's really hard not to.
We don't want to be thinking, look to private business or the NGOs for processes that make profit or that. That's not the right mental rubric. What it is though, is how do we take on private sector processes or examine private sector processes to add value to the community, right? That's our capital. That's where we make our profit, is when the community benefits. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So how do we take those private sector processes or the NGO processes, because they're different, and move into that space so that we can take the good, add it to what we're doing, and make it better. So
as we come back
yeah.
to the mission statement, here's what I'd like to propose. Graham, would you read it one more time? as it is. We'll type it up because we're gonna break for dinner. You think about it, because this is an important decision that you're making, because our mission statement is our umbrella. You know, it's really the essence of this utility, and we want it to be broad-based enough so that we can move and grow and change, and all your ideas that you want to put into this, we want it to fit, right?
And we don't have to be perfect
No.
right now. We can
No.
always come back and
Thank
change
you,
it.
President Bender.
So,
Exactly.
We can try it on. If we don't like it,
right, I'm a try it on guy, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, we are miles away from making a decision
Yeah.
like this.
correct.
We're miles away with feasibility studies away, we're so far away from having to make those decisions. Right now, we are building the foundation to be able to start, starting the process to come to a point where we can start understanding the situation and then start building and making decisions. So, and part of that thought, I don't disagree. Part of that process, it may get flushed out, that this is not a service that we need to be involved with. But, there will be so many opportunities and off-ramps in the process we're developing right now to begin to understand what it is the community needs. It doesn't mean we'll do it. It just means if it's something that the community really wants, we'll take a hard look at it. But there's a lot of steps.
We were gonna go to the gas business, natural gas business. So we got, Southwest Gas to, conduct a study. And they came back to us and they said, we're gonna take it. That's why they're here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, things change
Wow.
also.
Yeah, but that was a good.
Yeah.
Right, and just going through that process was awesome. Just going through that process.
I know it.
Yeah.
Looking at it, taking a hard look at it, and then you have a private entity saying, wow, look at those numbers, we can make this work, so they then.
And in the end, the community benefits.
Yeah.
That's, I think,
Yeah.
that's the end point here is it doesn't really matter whether we come out of it with it or not. It is that we have gone through the process, and in the end, the community has been able to derive benefit. I think that's key. So right now, before we go to dinner, the mission statement as it stands is the mission of Truckee Donner Public Utility District is to provide reliable, high-quality utility services while managing district resources in a safe, open, responsible, and environmentally sound manner at the lowest practical cost.
Hey, Rick, you missed utility and customer.
So you
Utility and
typed
customer.
it in the slide.
I didn't know,
Yeah.
I'll fix it.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Utility and customer.
So right
services,
here,
my
it
fault.
would be
Customer.
utility
Yeah.
and
And
customer
customer
services.
Yes.
Okay?
Period.
Period. While meeting, no,
While
getting rid of
managing-
this.
While managing,
While managing district resources, blah, blah, blah. So they're just nuanced changes. You've added really good thoughts. Let's think about that at dinner. We'll get this up on the screen for you. And Shauna, is dinner next door?
Yes, it is.
We have really good stuff to eat.
I figured we could grab it and come, yeah, I figured we could grab it and come back, so we're gonna socially
Okay.
distance as well as film public.
So Cedar House has provided some nice dinner for us tonight. So if you go next door and get your dinners and come back, we'll get this up for you to think about. Thanks for all your input.
so
That was
President
really-
Benford, we're gonna break for till 6 o'clock. For those folks that are online, we'll come back in at 6. So we're gonna move.
Rem,
Move around.
Rem, do you have a minute?
Do you want me to call you? Talk to you?
I sent you a couple emails. I just sent you a couple emails.
All right. I will look at them.
Bobby, how you handle that?
For dinner break, carry on.
All right. Well, thank you, board. As a close to our mission statement conversation, the mission statement before you, just to advance into the strategic planning process, and Tony, you were absolutely correct. We won't adopt this document for months to come, so there are plenty of off-ramps, and as we refine the process, we can come back to this if necessary. But right now, the working mission statement is the mission of Truckee Donner Public Utility District is to provide reliable, high-quality utility and customer services while managing district resources in a safe, open, reasonable, responsible, and environmentally sound manner at the lowest practical cost. Are we all in agreement that that's what we're going to work with?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Do you think maybe we might put transparent instead of open?
What do you guys think?
That seems to be the word that,
The word du
the
jour.
buzzword that, everybody likes to use.
Well, when we're talking about it as board, we do use the word transparent. It is more letters.
Do we have a 100-letter maximum? Right.
200 characters, limit, 140.
Yeah, it's 140.
I remember when I was writing my papers, you used to have a hard time trying to get to the 300 words.
Krista, Joe, Tony,
I don't mind the change, the transparent.
Krista?
I don't mind it, if you like open up, it's a little more simple and maybe a little old fashioned.
Could refer to open door as well. Open door policy.
Transparent is the buzzword, which maybe is why I'm kind of like, that's just a short.
Just a thought, not gonna hurt my feelings one or the other.
Okay. All right. Well,
So you know it.
well, we tested it. All right, so then we'll continue forward, and this will be we'll use this as our core until as we move forward. Thank you very much, everybody, for the excellent work in the conversation.
And Ram, just for Bob, and the board, as you're thinking this, when you come up with ideas, and they might not be carried forward for that moment, just remember, I'm taking copious notes. I'll always bring them back and say, we talked about this, where are we? You may think differently 4 months from now after community input.
All right, that takes us to the big lift of the night, and that is our painting the landscape. So as we move into that, here are the 8 levers of painting the landscape. And so we also put inside that the conversation about traditional, innovative, and visionary. This little set of themes popped out of one of our committees, and it's just really been a really great addition to our process. The first of these, it's hard to see. I understand. So the first of our 8 strategic levers is organizational integration. This is really important for any utility, but for us right now, there's a number of rigidities within the organization that are preventing certain efficiencies. And so there's a real opportunity for us to identify, think about those, and to authorize or say it's okay to check them and say, we want to integrate the organization as a whole. That processes on one side of the fence in terms of one of our utility deliveries or one of our services, electric, need to mirror and can support processes that are on the water side of the fence. And so we've been very, as an organization, we've operated in this two-space wobble. And I think in the ELT, we've identified, and even staff, that there are significant opportunities in the organization as we integrate across that boundary. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
I like that, by the way, I really.
Do you?
Yeah.
Good.
Just to throw it out there.
So just remember, as Ram and I are sharing the mission, we're focusing on painting the landscape. these strategic levers would eventually move into goals as you continue to massage the concept. We put visionary ideas where they will nest. We get staff input, we get the customer's input. So just know these are kind of out there. And I want to reiterate what Rem said. I've been doing strategic planning for a very long time, and I am so proud of this staff and what they are presenting to you tonight. This is high-level strategic thinking, very high level. And they just had so much fun, and just thanks for providing the opportunity. You know, you're the ones who did that. Next, engage with customers and our communities to identify opportunities. Just think about that. Engage with our customers. You've talked about that for a year. Let's continue to engage with our customers as well as our community. When Rem started out tonight, he talked about communities not just being people. This is a really cool idea. But flora and fauna, and what else could it be? You know, community. To identify opportunities of the future.
So those communities can be both vertical and lateral, right? So they can be business communities, subsets of our greater community. They can be environmental communities. They can be whatever. But the thing is that what we are driving at is there are places where our services are touching more than just, or they're touching certain subsections. For instance, when we talk about electric services in the downtown core, the business core is important to the community, and its success is important to the business community, and we want to think of them as a community. So while yes, they are part of our greater stakeholder ratepayers, we want to make sure that we're thinking about them not just in that context. And so it causes a diversity of thought as we move forward into strategic planning, in that we will consider specific groups as we're moving along. So if there's a way for us to, through our strategic planning process, enhance the activity of a community. For instance, something, you know, our academic community. The school district is in need of support. How does the TDPUD, with its electric service, its water service, and potentially data services, how do we help them? Right? They are in a casualty mode right now. How do we help them? They are a specific community. So this is what we're trying to do, is drive our thought process out of the conventional, these are our ratepayers, this is how we look at that group: residential, commercial, municipal, industrial, irrigation, chunk, right? So that's where we went with this. Modernization of the utility. This is another one, right? So recognizing, and Bob, you're 100%, there are certain things that we do that we've been doing for millennia, right? I'm a civil engineer. We've been moving water the same way through a pipe or through a ditch since the Romans, right? And that technology really hasn't changed. The Darcy-Weisbach equation, that's a can deal, right? But there are ways to do it more efficiently. There are ways to bring financial advantage to our communities by looking for opportunities to do it better, to think about it better. Not cutting edge, not bleeding edge stuff, because that sometimes can get us into trouble. But how do we modernize the utility so that we can meet the electrification goal? How do we modernize the water system so that we can meet fire needs? We can meet the transient population. We can better service our community. So those are the kind of things, right? So one of the things that we're working on right now is, with PSPS and the single shot mode for the district, how do we do that in a more elegant way than just kind of whack-a-mole? Everybody gets the same, everybody gets single shot, and that's just how we're going to roll with it. We have to think of it in a better way so that we know certain circuits we can bring down quickly, certain circuits we can't, certain operational functionality. We're talking about, as opposed to using the switching, we're talking about using the fuses more aggressively. This way, the customers benefit, the community benefits, and the organization can modernize itself, albeit accurately and correctly, to meet the service at a higher efficiency. That drops us into taking the best of the business sector thinking to add value to our communities. I already talked a little bit about this, but it's something that utilities tend not to lean into. And that's because we can fall back on the fact that we generate income, we're not profit thinking, we're not aggressive, we don't necessarily have to be terribly aggressive in that space. I think that's, for me personally, that's a difficult thing because I take my obligation to the community very seriously, and as a custodian of their funds, the ratepayers' monies, we need to be using those monies in a judicious way. And so part of my MBA process was to think about how do we take a utility, take some of these private sector thought processes, net present value, all that kind of stuff, and how do we overlay that onto the utility and think about the initiatives that we're going to move forward. Does it have value? Does it have a return on investment? Or is there an economic decision here that makes sense? Working with the ELT, we converted that financial underpinning to that thought process into a value added to the community. And I think that was a fantastic shift for us, in that now we're thinking, okay, if we move forward with this piece of modernization, this new pump station, using variable frequency drives on our pumps, stuff like that, does that bring added value to our community? That's a huge thought shift for a utility. And so, thinking about that as we're moving forward is, I think, key to our process. Environmental stewardship. So this is about creating a sustainable, resilient environment for all of our communities. As a resource management agency, that I would put, we need to be thinking about how we utilize our environment to provide the resources that we deliver to our community. And those on the water side of the house, those are the watersheds that we operate in. So from the crest all the way to the groundwater basin, and being a leader inside that groundwater basin are critical to our success as a utility, but also critical to the environment and the communities around those what I'll call facilities. I know it's sometimes a little bit difficult to say, well, that forest is a facility, but if we can think of it as an asset, then we can programize some of its work and say, look, we need to make sure that it's getting the appropriate attention so it doesn't burn down, right? We know a number of utilities, PCWA for one, where an enormous amount of their watershed has been burned flat. So the watershed has been damaged. Its ability to produce high quality clean water for its system is damaged. So it's really important for us to think about those forests as an asset, and to work with our other community partners to ensure that they're getting the appropriate care. And there's a thousand other added benefits to that, right? So if we're managing those forests for water quality, then they're also getting a benefit for fire, they're also getting a benefit for habitat, all of those things, and the community in there. So thinking about our role as an environmental steward is important.
How do we ever have an economic or these strategic levers without finances, Mike? We just can't. And when you think about this statement of managing for financial stability and resiliency, congratulations to each of you and the years that you've spent doing that. I mean, there's so much to be proud of. But what this statement allows is for you to be able to think about leveraging that economic engine. And what does that really mean? And if the community brings to you ideas that are compelling, that will really make a difference in these communities, this broad base, you want to be able to still have the financial stability to be able to look at doing these things. And developing an inclusive culture drives organizational success. Shauna and Joe talked about the importance of culture. We've talked about it for 10 months, but this inclusive culture, that's different. Developing an inclusive culture drives organizational success. So think about how you would describe that to the public. What does inclusivity mean to you as we move forward in thinking about painting this landscape of the future? And of course, culture is at the base. Marrying strategy to culture, they're one in one as we move through this.
I think for that one, we have the perfect example is these 8 levers, right? We worked every section, every level of this organization to bring you these 8. And no one unit, no one group, no one person here at the district could have done this. They could not have crafted these and then done the work that's sitting behind them. It's a little bit of an inside joke, but the synergy of all of our staff, I'm teasing Ian, the synergy here is that we could lift more because there were more of us. We could develop higher quality because of all of us. And it's that stuff that can, to borrow the term, propel us forward with speed and accuracy. That brings us to the last one, and it's be welcoming and transparent in how we work. I think this is key to any governmental organization. You know, and I recognize at times it's hard because sometimes decisions aren't liked, and it's difficult to be out in the open because you got to take some hits. But in the end, my father always said, "The truth shall set you free." I believe that, and as I mentioned earlier, there is no decision that we make here at the district that should not be able to shoulder or take the light of truth and to be out in the open. And so being able to live this, to be welcoming and transparent, to say, look, come, we want to hear. We may not agree, but we want to hear, and it kind of ties to the Truckee way. And I know there's some people down on that a little bit right now, but you know what, coming here for me, that was one of the attractors. I believe in it, that we can all sit in a room, we can all have a discussion, we will come to a decision. We may not all agree, but we'll all get there, and we'll get there in a congenial way. So with that.
And Bob, you bringing up transparent, I was excited for you to see these levers because transparency is there. And remember, we have the mission, and these will ladder up to that mission. And the other thing, as you are now looking at in the front of your notebook, is this document. It's multiple pages, 3 pages. It's in the front of your notebook, Joe. And at the top, it says Painting the Landscape /SWAT version 6. Just to point that out. There's been a lot of work on this thing, huh, you guys?
All right.
So has everyone found that?
No.
Okay. Thanks, Bob.
Back to the next page. Sorry.
Good, no problem. Everybody has it? Okay. Remember the great definitions that you were given for SWOT. The process we are using is very unique. So you have the strategic levers, which are concepts. And what I want you to think about, why did you run for this office? Why are you running again for incumbent? Not to discuss. But is there a passion that you have that you're hoping the community brings to you as a board that you really want to talk about conceptually? There are many, right, that you can think of, and we could write those down, right? What I want you to think about with these strategic levers are those concepts and ideas. If you dream it, you can do it. That passion. And in your mind, go through these 8 levers and say, where would I fit those? Where would we nest them? Which one of these 8 levers, or maybe 2 or 3 of them, would they fit under? So all of have your ideas between now and October, our October 21st meeting, Rem and the staff and myself want you to be thinking just that question so that we can see if we're missing a concept here. Okay? Because anything you think of as a board that you would like to do, that you want to support the community needs, you're passionate about, please kind of write it as homework, because you guys are really good at homework, that you want to make sure it would fit under, and it doesn't have to fit under just one lever. In fact, if it fits under more levers, it's better. What do you think?
It's under every level, yes.
Yes! Yes! Let's give that a big round of applause. Yes! I love it. Can't wait to hear what that is in October. Now what Rem and I are going to go through is you take these strategic levers, and remember, threats and opportunities are external. Okay? So if you think of threats, the term threats, these are roadblocks. These are intersections we may come to. Threats could bring this organization, the district, to its knees. And some are beyond our control. Opportunities are cutting edge, dreams, what if? Okay? So as you bring underneath these strategic levers, your concepts, your ideas, you know, the initiatives you want to bring forward, we will take each of those and run them through this same threats and opportunities. What Rem and I are going to do now is we're going to go through the threats and opportunities as they relate to each strategic lever. And as we read them, I want you to think, are we missing something? Okay, are we missing a threat or an opportunity for each of these strategic levers?
All right, so the first one, organizational integration. So the threats here that staff has identified, singular interest, right? If there's a singular interest, it damages the organizational movement, right? Because it's driving itself outside of the shared objective. Political and regulatory environment. Some of this is talking about the issue about Sacramento and some of our regulatory and state agencies, right? Those are, they can be a threat if we don't stay active in that space. The mindset and inertia. Sometimes there's within an organization a mindset or an inertia, right? That's the way we've always done it. That's a phrase that's fraught with error for me. And so if we're talking about organizational integration, you have to break down that wall and ask it why. So being able to do that and move that off the table is very important. And then lack of succession planning. You know, organizational integration works as long as we're thinking about growing staff. They are, in my opinion, our single most important resource. Without them, nothing moves forward. And so growing them, working with them, and treating them like a true resource of the organization is very important to me. So on the opportunities, we've got authentic and evolving culture and values. This is something I really value here at the PUD, and that this is an evolving thing that's happening right now, right? With the authenticity, we can really value one another within the organization and really take personal opinions and personal ideas and carry them forward in a really non-threatening way. And we get to leverage all of that horsepower, which I think is fantastic. Operational excellence, we're in that space, and being able to move forward from there. This is to Tony's point earlier, is being able to come to this place right now, essentially right after the GM is hired, means that we are operating at this higher level and we can continue at that pace. Becoming a standard bearer for this community. I think the reason we were in this place is that The district holds within the community a certain amount of stature, and being able to support not only our peer utilities, but also the town and the community as a consistent, predictable rock is really important to us, and we have that ability. We've got continuity of leadership now, we've got a strong staff, and we have the right tools to deliver this to the community. Professional development and learning environment. The PUD has demonstrated this over and over again for the last year. Its commitment to growing is without question, and to continue that growth means that we all get better as we move forward. So definitely an opportunity for us here at the district.
Engaging with customers in our communities and identifying opportunities. Last year, throughout the year, one of the tenets that you all said you wanted to focus on in the recruitment of a new general manager was someone that would become an integral part of this community, who loved this community like each of you, who embedded themselves here, who really got involved. We talked a lot about this. And the reasoning was all of the opportunities that are listed there, but I want to talk about the threats first. In opening ourselves up to the community, and we talked about that there are lots of community members that don't know what we do. So anytime you begin to open up, there are threats of vocal minorities. You're going to maybe all decide you want to do something, and there will be some vocal minorities who don't like it. Inspecting expectations. People are going to come and inspect your expectations and push, and jurisdictional, which could be out of our control. The opportunities are so great with this lever. So when you think about partnering, communicating, educating, and understand that community needs. I mean, you're going to be given data that's going to be so compelling and fun for you to munch on. You know, here's what the community wants. Identifying new services that are well positioned, that we are well positioned to provide. So what might those be? That's a huge opportunity. Validating customer and community's dreams and expectations. When you talked about last year, wouldn't it be great if we had, 20 to 30 people attending our meetings and supporting ideas? That was a dream. Well, it's aspirational. This is aspirational too. How do we, really engage? And what staff really talked about is that we become kind of the go-to district. Well, let's go talk to the PUD about this. Could they partner with us? Could we do this together? Pioneering ideas and leveraging relationships.
So out of that, we then talked about modernizing utility, right? Clearly the threats there are, do we have the capacity, right? Do we have the horsepower to do it financially? On the human side, is it there? Those are tricky pieces to put in place. Again, mindset and inertia also, right? This is the same old REM. This is how we've done it. This is how we're going to do it. That doesn't always work. Over or under leveraging, right? Sometimes we've got too much facility in one spot and not enough in another. So instead of just saying, well, that's where it is, we're not going to go there, we can move it, right? There isn't anything that says that we can't pull a pump and move it over here or change how that's working, right? But it takes a little bit of a mind shift. And then unmanaged risks. We want to make sure that as we're modernizing, we're not causing risk in the system. So, we are a utility. We are traditionally a very risk-adverse business, and we want to maintain that because we want to maintain reliability and safety to our community. The opportunities here are reduce costs and improve service, a huge one. Modernization always should address these two, and there are a lot of proven technologies that can immediately start to move the district forward because of some of the capital that we're utilizing right now. It's old. And there are a number of technology leaps that we can go through that will have a very measurable improvement here, both in cost and service. Reliability and resiliency, as we move into different technologies, it makes us more able to answer these questions or operate in these spaces, right? So outages shorten, we can communicate more effectively with the public, that kind of thing. And then positioning ourselves for future relationships. As we modernize our system, we want to be thinking about our regional partners, whether it's power or water. How do we make sure that there is a membrane there, the ability for us to lean into NV Energy or Liberty when we need help, or to lean into some of our nearby water systems when they need help or when we need help. Those kind of things they're bigger thought processes than just saying, look, there's our boundary, that's as far as our pipe goes. There's our boundary, that's as far as our wire goes, right? The success of our community is our success. So then we drop into taking the best of the private sector thinking and to add value to our community. Mindset and inertia, again, pops up in here. Lack of experience, this isn't really something that we've done before. So again, the learning organization we have to start thinking like this. We have to start studying and learning in that space. Structural constraints, there may be real blockages to our ability to do this, right? A private entity can do something, we can't, right? The investor-owned utilities can do a lot of things that a publicly owned utility cannot. It's just regulatorily we can't. So we have to recognize those when we're thinking big thoughts. We have to know that maybe we can't go there. And then legacy processes and thinking that kind of goes with the mindset and inertia stuff, right? Again, we've always done it this way. Something we're trying to move away from. The opportunities here are clear. We can become an economic engine for our community, right? We can support those things that make Truckee stronger, right? We can be an integral part to that. Customer and communities are driven, perfect, leverage future partnerships. We want to make sure that synergy is offered to us, right? If we can work with Tahoe City, or we can work with North Star, or we can work with Olympic, we gain advantage by developing partnerships here in the Tahoe Basin, right? You recognize that Sacramento doesn't really recognize us always. And I can tell you when I've been down there, east of the crest, sometimes it's hard to sell. So having partners that we can leverage into, but even North Tahoe and South Tahoe, right? Reaching down and saying, this is the Tahoe Basin coming. We are a strong voice then, So those kind of things are important. Setting standard and being cutting edge. Those are kind of goes back to an earlier conversation that I would like to have an organization where when another organization has a difficulty, they know to call Truckee Donner. They may have had this experience and they're willing to share with us, and they have the expertise that can help us get out of this, right? We're a big enough organization that kind of expertise can reside within our organization. Environmental stewardship, creating a sustainable, resilient environment for all our communities. We have competing priorities. That's a big one, right? We don't want to lose the fact that we provide power and water, and that's our core business. Technical uncertainty, not really our strength. Lack of resources. This isn't a space we play in, and Prop 218 and some of our rate setting causes some difficulty there. Community fatigue and saturation. We don't want to have, there's so many environmental organizations saying so many environmental things that they can get lost in that space, and we can get lost in that space. And then evolving customer expectations and willingness to pay. Bob, this is to your point, sir. We want to make sure that we get into spaces where we can bring value to the customers and they understand that. The opportunities there bring resources to the community in a sustainable way, in a resilient way. Focused on the sustainability and resiliency. We want to make sure that not just now, but into the future. I think I read the Lorax far too many times. But then to become renewable and carbon-free, right? This is a goal for the state of California. We are a long way to approaching this goal, and we'll shortly have a lot of these things knitted up. But this is a really important thing, I think, to the community and to the state of California as we move forward. Establishing community-wide greenhouse gas reduction goals. We want to be working with the community, because we're the primary provider, and be cutting edge and forward thinking. You know, there's a lot of good science out there, and sometimes the public gets lost, and we have a lot of technical expertise that we can support them with and provide counsel, you know, wherever we kind of fit into that conversation.
So managing for financial stability and resiliency, you know, there's so much here when you think about threats, because we are in this. Oh, it's your nameplate. We'll get it.
I didn't move.
He's got a bug.
Thanks, Bob. So, did you get it okay? Okay, great. So as we think about financial stability and resiliency, what I was going to say, I'm sure every single one of you in your own businesses, and as you think about your past for Joe and the future, you know, this is a moment in time where we don't know what the economic future is. There's lots of predictions, right? But everything we read is something different, which makes it difficult for entities and elected boards. So there are laws and regulations, and there may be more of those coming. These are threats. Inverse condemnation. Broad economic uncertainty that I just talked about. Attracting and retaining talent can bring, you know, a district to their needs. And so that's where culture comes in. So many of these are interwoven. And we know with attracting and retaining talent, it's probably succession planning as well in there, nested in there. The legal liability and cyber computer technological risks and data breaches, they're getting bigger. As we think about opportunities, though, we talked earlier about leveraging this economic engine for things we want to do, building our reserves, provide resources in times of crisis. Are there things that we can incentivize the community to join us in doing? Provide resources to pursue organization and community's needs and opportunities. Continue financial stability. That's critical, isn't it? I mean, all these apply to your own business. And maintain local control. That probably doesn't apply to your for-profit business.
I just put a bullet on that one.
Yeah.
And local control. It's really important.
It is. It is very, very important. And then developing an inclusive culture that drives organizational success. The threat. If we would have a change in leadership tomorrow, it would be a big threat.
I'm healthy.
We got to keep you that way. Lack of continuous follow-through and setting of expectations. And that's where, Tony, you talked about this. You know, we're doing it. If we weren't, if we didn't have your support and your ideas, you know, that's a big threat. And your setting of the expectation for us to do this. Lack of employee involvement. Employee and culture is extremely critical when we think that 78% of the workforce will be millennials by the end of next year. Okay, their culture is everything. And reverting to top-down management style. We talked about that as a board. you know, staff has talked about that, Rams talked about that, and we definitely, that's definitely a threat. And then stuck, this whole thing that Rem talked about, stuck in the past. But the opportunities, this is where this B1 district, and thank you for your input on the mission statement, because it really makes it feel that way. You know, it gives more latitude. It's a huge opportunity. The opportunity is to attract and retain top talent because of just who we are. And more than anything, you guys can set the standard. The culture ambassador. It gives every single person who works for the PUD, REM, the ELT, everyone in this room, it gives the opportunity to be culture ambassadors for this district. Enable our people to be all they can be. And one of the reasons I really typed that, and staff talked about it, Rem mentioned that 4 times in his 41 cultural question answers. I went back through and read everything, and that was a theme. Model integration and application of our values daily, and of course the opportunity to strengthen our diverse, inclusive, and equitable culture. We're pretty all white right now, so that can be a big focus to try to be include diversity.
Well, the 8th lever, and that's to be welcoming and transparent in how we work. You know, the threats are the social interest interference, the special interest interference can cause that to work a little bit. Reverting to silos and a siloed mind, right? We don't want to go back to the place where we had fiefdoms and, you know, there was operational enclaves within the organization. We don't want to have, we want to trust and we want to have civic engagement. So really being able to stand in that space and be a community partner in an open and transparent way. If I can use both words. The opportunities clearly are to engage and educate the customers and our community to be a trusted advisor in the community. An organization that other organizations and individuals can come to and get information and guidance and support as they move forward. Engage in high level of civic involvement, right? We have such opportunity here at the district. The staff is great. We are a model. We can do this. We can operate in this space and then maintain local control. And they showed up twice. We need to maintain local control. It's really important that this board always have the authority to do what the community wants and what it feels is best, right? We lose that, we lose the uniqueness of our system, and we lose it to a much more powerful organization.
So you guys, we just filled you up to the brim over your eyebrows with information without a lot of discussion. But we wanted tonight to expose you to this bigger picture and these strategic levers. And so when we start on October 21st, which gives you, close to a month to really think about this, first thing you're going to do is think about what passions, just like Krista said, one of her passions, perhaps, or ideas or initiatives, actually would fit under all 8 of these. We want you to think of that. And we're going to start the meeting on the 21st with you sharing. Maybe you only share one thing, more isn't necessarily better, but it's something you've been thinking about, something that you're passionate about, that you'd like to see us explore, the word explore through this process, okay? Then secondly, we'd really appreciate you reading the threats and opportunities again, sitting with it, digesting, and tell us what we're missing. Do a real gap analysis with us, and we'll add those. Or maybe there's something when you read it that you want to take it out. It doesn't fit, because this is you. I just want to keep repeating this. We want to be able to begin writing an executive summary. We're going to publish the strategic plan. You know, we want to be really specific with, it's yours. And so starting October 21st, we'll start with this document and then start planting your visionary ideas under the strategic levers and then get your input on the threats and opportunities. This really is the core of where you live, because so much of this has to do with outreach, community, representation of the community. The other thing that I wanted to say is all your discussions under culture fit under number 7. And remember the discussions about radical empathy? Does everybody remember those discussions? Well, I want you to know that there's a new publication, Krista, thanks to you. That's very exciting. There are now 3 clearly defined stages of empathy, and it's been researched since COVID. So the first level of empathy is cognitive, and that is where someone's talking to us, telling them this is just the first layer, the COVID story, and how they're doing, and we are active listening. That's cognitive. You know, we're showing just that first level of empathy. The second level is emotional, where we really feel what they're going through. Much higher level of empathy. We might even talk to friends or significant others about, wow, you know, I was having a real pity party, but yeah, not so much. Okay, that's that second emotional level. And the third level is compassionate or radical empathy. And what that means is you listen, you hear, and you act. You actually help the person. So you really, you know, there are so many stories right now, right, that we all hear. And then there's the actionable ones where we decide that we have enough emotion left within us, which is difficult, to really say, I want to help you. And I have an idea of how I might do that. So that's the third, compassionate, radical empathy. So congratulations to all of you. You were out there before this was even published. Just want you to know, when Rem talks about cutting edge, you have a lot of it. So comments. What do you think about these levers?
First pass, I like them. Yeah, that, you know, they're fitting in with, you know, our thoughts, our vision. Keep thinking about SCADA for some reason. I'm not going to say that.
SCADA!
You know, wonderware, maybe, wonderware. You know, where is it? We're buying it and then integrating water and electric and wire to water, electrical demand control. Sorry, this is just my mind just off.
No, this is good.
Field. Just thinking about this, I was like, wow, that actually sounds pretty cool. You know, bringing that together.
Yeah.
And not just organizational, but control, data, nerds, engineering out on.
Engineering. You gotta add that to the strat plan.
I can say that because I'm an engineer.
I know. Engineering. But Jeff, you're brainstorming right now. What you just allowed yourself to do is just kind of blurt out what you were thinking. That's what this is about. The more you all do that, the better. Awesome.
Like, wow, we can do that. It's like instantaneous demand control with the
largest electric customer, the water district, is like, hey, what pumps are running, who needs water where? I don't know. What's going on there, Brian?
Those guys do.
That
guy does over there.
Well, how do we, so, let's engineer together. So how do you take that and go one step further? How do you give the community that kind of horsepower? What do you put in their hands so that they have the power to turn off their service, check their service? We've talked about concierge services. So you have your normal water account that you can watch on your phone, but then you can have premium services because we have more data points in this community than any other entity. I can tell you the temperature over there. I can tell you a lot of what's happening here specifically. So our SCADA system is collecting data. It's its whole point. How do we leverage that? How do we make sure that, that the downtown corridor is protected all the time? And that the community can know within an instant whether it's going to have power or not, or why the power's out, or when they're going to get their power back, right? These kind of things they're important. But then overlay onto that, what is the district of 2100? Think about that. How does it take that thought process and move it forward? Where do we want it to be? That's crazy stuff, right? But we have that horsepower, right? We have the fiber to do it. We have the SCADA systems to do it. We have the team. I have to say, guys, to Ian and his crews, I've never had an IT unit like this before ever in my life. And with them, we can go far, very far. And just in our own operations, with improvements to our pump stations, we can configure the system very quickly to answer any kind of threat. Fire, water shortage, health and safety, you name it. The SCADA package can do it. And then we overlay it with a command and control system that talks unifiedly with power, and we can make all of that connect instantaneously, right? 185,000 miles per second, speed of light. Catch us if you can.
So start thinking of these ideas so that we can, October 21st, begin the meeting with this. And as as thoughts come up that are questions, call Rem and talk about it, because these levers can really be applied, easily. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 100 years from now. Okay, I think we should skip to strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
We can do it.
Okay.
So the last thing we want to share tonight is the internal strengths and weaknesses. And yes, page 4 on the back of this same document. Joe, did you find it? Okay, great. I just want to remind you this is internal, organizational, and this brings in the whole cultural piece. And Rem's going to talk a little bit about next steps, but one of the things that we have is a staff development committee that we are going to come back to the employees before we see you again in October and share with them what we shared with you tonight, because these ideas bubbled up from them.
Yeah, these are there.
So I want you to know, if you remember the first meeting when we talked about the 4 pillars, we have community, we have the board, we have the ELT, we have staff. We're implementing this in 4 different postures or pillars at the same time. So that's what's going to be happening. So Brian, let's do strengths and weaknesses.
So you've had to digest a lot this evening.
Yeah.
with paint the landscape. We started with the mission statement, setting our mission and where we're going, building that with values, the principles with which, from which we get there, painting the landscape and the levers are to keep strategic planning. Some strengths or threats and opportunities externally. Well, the next step in this, in developing our strategic plan, as we talked about in the last workshop, this is a large process to digest. One of the key components here is identifying the strengths and weaknesses internally within our organization that we either need to manage or mitigate in order to accomplish the strategic planning process. And so in terms of our strengths, those are things that, as Pam mentioned early on, while we were doing the painted landscape with staff, we were also having discussions on pulling from them their ideas and thoughts on what are our strengths and weaknesses. And it was really quite remarkable how aligned a lot of these were through different portions of the organization. And one of the key ones that, you know, I think everybody in this room recognizes and has acknowledged over the years is that one of our key strengths are our people, the staff that's here. The roll up your sleeves, get it done, no matter what attitude and approach to everything we do. You've seen it with the Snowmageddon videos. You've seen it out there in the field in the summer when you're driving by, crews out there getting things done, customer service, meeting every customer with a smile and getting those needs accomplished. Rem just talked about the IT department, finance. All of those things are on the backs of staff that are competent, professional, and dedicated to this service that we're in. We spoke earlier on the approaching 100 years. That's in itself, that solidarity, that rock. We also have hundreds of years collectively of experience in the staff. All kinds of diverse, unique skill sets, backgrounds, expertise, input. And so, you know, 100 years of development and bringing in the staff that we have is clearly evident. The little engine that could, that's that roll up your sleeves approach to everything we do as a community service. Expertise, we talked about moving into the future. I'm not going to say anything more. We just talked about that with the IP and the innovation, Jeff, with the SCADA and Wonderware, you know, moving forward, the future focus. And then Rem's pounded this, and I'm gonna support that and follow right behind him and pound it again. Kudos to the board through the policy development, staff through their outreach and partnership with some of the mutual agencies out there in maintaining local control. We beat that, but we're going to continue to beat that drum moving forward because that's what preserves this district and the community's control of what services we provide. So weaknesses. This is the self-reflective process as an organization. And staff at all levels did an amazing job of this. It was without fear of reprisal or insult or, you know, it was not personal or personalized. It was a great process in self-reflection. We talked about it this evening already, the one district. Not having that mindset is a weakness because there's strength in having that mindset. And so that relationship there that Rem and Pam and some of the staff have already talked about, that one mindset is how we move forward in the future. Community partnerships evolution. We have a lot of relationships out there in the community, but have we evolved with those relationships that benefit the community and the district and our goals? Is there more there for us to do in terms of, we talked about the watershed and the forest preservation, thinking internally and evolving those relationships more than we have in the past. Perception of who we are. That's the mindset and inertia. That exists internally, it exists externally. But internally, we can, as an organization, be too focused on water and power, reliability, sustainability, and not see what, step back for a minute and really look at the one district, the interactions between water, power, data, finance, customer service. So we need to shift that mindset internally. Existing capacity is always a concern in any strategic plan. We've talked about that at length internally as a leadership team and with the operations. we can set these amazing goals, but one of the things we either need to acknowledge, manage, or mitigate is our capacity. Does that mean bringing in more resources? Does it mean, more robust financial planning? Does it mean increasing staff size? Those are all things we need to consider in the planning process. Communication. This is going to come up continually through all of our processes, our internal processes, our external processes, and through our planning. Communication is really critical. Are we doing a efficient or good enough job communicating internally and externally to make sure as we make this planning process that we have accurate information, timely information, and we're getting feedback, the feedback loops in place. And then one that this isn't just the PUD, this isn't just the Tahoe Basin, this isn't just California, this is, nationally, aging infrastructure. And so this is something because, our district goes back to 93 years. That means their infrastructure at some point has to continually be replaced. And so if you're not staying up on that, you have an aging infrastructure that's going to draw some of your resources. And so we can't be future focused until we're also caught up and keeping that operation up to date, reliable, and resilient. So that aging infrastructure is something we must acknowledge as we start to plan for the future. And so how does this all tie into what we're talking about this evening? Is that all of our strategic planning needs to account for these in order for it to be an effective process. And so while we're developing the strategic plan through painting the landscape and all the levers that it must pull in order for it to be in alignment with our plan, we need to make sure that we are accounting for the weaknesses, like I said, either managing them or mitigating them, or at least acknowledging that our strategy has to account for it. And then how do we build on our strengths and utilize those to move us forward? And it's open for discussion. It's going through all of them.
Do you cover risk-averse culture?
Oh, risk-averse culture. Thank you. I missed that one. That's the nature of utility. You're an engineer. We have to make.
Yeah. You wanted to discuss it.
Risk bad. There are some engineers in the room. And the risk averse is what this industry does. And so if we're going to be innovative and visionary, the ripples going out, moving out, thinking outside of the box or no box, one of the things that could be possibly compromised is that, that intuitive risk aversion that we have in this mentality working in the utility. And so we have to make sure that we're not just completely ignoring this, but at the same time, don't let us hold us back. We need to manage it appropriately, acknowledge it, account for it, and then full force forward. But thank you for bringing that up, because that is something that, as a public utility in particular, it's a challenge for us, because we are from, our early days with, as a new hire, where it's beat into our head, that don't mitigate risk. And so that's something we need to make sure it's not threatening our overall strategy. Thank you.
Comments?
Very good.
Let's give everybody a big round of applause. I mean, this is really, first night out there.
You guys are ahead of the curve.
Yeah, we're running. We're running.
Yeah, I just want to say that, that is the AP version, obviously a tremendous amount of thought, thoughtfulness, effort, time, thoroughness has gone into it. I'm really impressed. And I've been taking a little while to catch up. And catch up to a little bit now. So, thank you for putting it in front of us in a manageable way.
Good. Well, and, I'm just going to come back to what Tony said. Just remember, this is a process, a shared process. We're going to give lots of time for input, lots of massaging, and it's really just like hiring a general manager. It's one time while you're here. For some of you, Joe got the opportunity with 2 general managers, but doing this sort of in-depth strategic plan, you know, is something that will project this district into the future.
What I think is it also adds to the critical thinking of this group as a total.
Yeah.
Right? It opens the conversation so that we're all aligning ourselves with, yeah, that's the top of the hill we want. That's where we're all going to go. And it helps me as the GM align our resources so that I can achieve the goals that you set for me and for the organization. So as we continue down this track, you know, coming out of tonight, we're going to prepare the front end of the strategic document. That's the mission statement, some of the executive stuff. We'll start putting together the front end, the values and whatnot. We'll then start to develop the community outreach plan, surveys, and focus groups. So that, to Bob's point, that's going to integrate community priorities into the painting of the landscape. Inside the painting of the landscape, also, we're going to add those community, the social and environmental responsibility stuff. We're going to apply the PUD, community, social, environmental, we got that. And then identify and build initiatives and objectives. So these are the things that are going to ride underneath our goals. These are going to be the tangible things that we're going to start to measure. We're going to test the plan with the community, with the CSR. And then for our next board workshop, we're going to have that outreach plan spun up, and we'll have the initial modeling for our social and environmental responsibility. And so just the last slide is kind of what our work plan is so far. You've already seen this. So on the 21st, we have our community outreach and initial discussion. November 18th, we're going to workshop our 3rd one, which will again have the CSER model in it. December is when we're going to lay low a little bit. We're going to conduct our surveys, start getting spun up for first quarter focus group meetings and to bring the data forward. February, we're going to workshop again the CSR model and align the culture and values. And then in March, we're going to workshop for goal setting and financial modeling. So that's tying strategic planning into our budgeting process. And then on the 7th, our goal is to have an adopted strategic plan. Hot diggity dog, you guys. We got a lot of ground to cover. So I couldn't bring you here, but there it is without smoke.
Yeah.
On the side.
Brian, you got the communications here. Thoughts started going through my mind when they first built this building. That middle hall was a divider from the back to the front, and it seemed like it took us a long time to get it together because that was a division.
Great symbolic metaphor there.
Yeah.
The workers and
the office. Yeah.
Even on the field, they could just walk them across sometimes. Say, what happened? What happened? You know, I was just hectic.
Does it extend that metaphor?
It came a long way, so over here, though.
Now we're going to get rid of that warehouse.
Yeah. Oh, we are.
Well, it's going to be there, but right now it's sent as a separator between that side of our shop and that side of our shop.
Symbolic and physical separation.
Mm-hmm.
Water.
Yeah.
Power.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for your time this evening. I truly appreciate it. I know that staff appreciates all of your time and input this evening, and we look forward to working with you as we move forward in this process. Very exciting.
Do we have some public input?
We have
Yes, we do need to ask for, Shauna, was there any public input
Yes, sir, there's some public input.
during this process?
Kim Harris wrote, and I'll read her,
Sean, you speak up so that you can hear.
absolutely. Thank you, Pam and Fran, for the presentation. I was surprised that senior managers were included in the process, but glad they were involved. I am requesting a copy of the slides and board notebook that was handed out at the presentation. I'd also like a copy of any of the data that is compelling to munch on when available. I appreciate the transparency of the process and look forward to the opportunity to participate as a community member and maybe future board member. Kim Harris.
Thank you.
That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
a good blessing.
It is.
So thank you. Any other last thoughts? Good. Lots of mics, a lot to think about. We have our homework to do.
Yeah.
Don't forget, it's due October 21st.
And we will start with that.
All right.
Good start. Everybody ready to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.
Alright.
I'm taking Steve Gross. We can just adjourn.
That's right. Well done, crew.
You
See you
wanna-
soon.
You can take those with you to do your homework.